Hey, 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 everybody. Oh, that was such a horrible opening. I'm sorry. Welcome to Casting for Two, episode number 2. Before I start things off, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to a band called Ocean 11, which supplied the theme song for the podcast. And they're this really great ska, reggae, jazz band. If you go on YouTube and search them up, you can find all sorts of their music, and it's really, really good, catchy music. So I'd recommend giving that a listen to. But today on this show, we have a filmmaker, writer, director, and musician, Jordan Galland. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, but very interesting guy. He directed a movie called Alter Egos, which is available on Netflix right now. So anybody who has Netflix, go on and check that out, and then come back and listen. Or you can listen while you're watching the movie, but it might ruin the experience for both things. So one or the other is fine. But the cool thing about Jordan was I had no idea how musical he was. He is a singer, songwriter. He scored movies, and it was really interesting to talk to him about that. He has a new album coming out called Wind Up Rabbit, which comes out July 23rd, which is this Tuesday. You can go on to the iTunes and purchase it, or you can go to jordangalland.com and pre-order it, get a physical copy. Because, having a hard copy is always more impressive than, showing them your iPod or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so sit back, relax, listen, and, so Jordan Galland coming right at you right now. Okay, thanks. And cue the music, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I live in the Pacific time coast, so it's not too much earlier right now.
Oh, okay, good. It's 7 in the morning?
9. Oh, wait, did I say Pacific? I meant Central.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I moved out of here, from Oregon to Texas. So whenever I need to talk to my friends, hang out with them, I always think in Pacific time for some reason.
I hear you.
But first, I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show. The show's going to be kind of like a light, fun, loose talking just about, your experiences with film and all that good stuff. So it's nothing too heavy. I'm not going to ask you any political questions.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Yeah, because I got air conditioning blowing.
Oh, okay. No, I don't even hear it.
Okay, good. I could turn it off, but then I'll turn it into a sweat ball.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't want that. As I was watching the film Alter Ego, and I really enjoyed it, first of all. And immediately I tried to, when I enjoy a film, I naturally just go in, IMDb, check out who was involved, what have they done, and all the things like that. And you're very interesting to me because I was not expecting you to be also a singer-songwriter. And it was really fun to fall down, the Galland rabbit hole.
Oh, cool.
So can you just talk a little bit about, first of all, a little bit of, your upbringing, stuff like that, and how you got into songwriting and all that good stuff?
there were a couple different points at which songwriting was something that fascinated me and I became obsessed with. I mean, it started when I was very little, but I wasn't like a prodigy in any instrument. I didn't like practicing. I totally lied to my parents about practicing piano, which is the first instrument that I was basically made to play when I was 5. I didn't really have a choice in the matter, but I did have a good ear. Like, I remember being able to figure out the Star Wars theme melody, for instance, when I was very little on a piano. And then later when I was playing guitar when I was 14, I just was super into David Bowie. And so by learning David Bowie songs, I ended up learning how to play guitar, and then I started writing songs then. When I met, they were very bizarre, kind of, space oddity-inspired songs, like sci-fi silliness. And then when I met Sean Lennon and his group of friends, and Timo Ellis, and Yuka and Miho from Chibomato, I was still pretty young, but, like, they were a little bit older than me, and they were kind of took me under their wing. And from there, I think I started to really take songwriting more seriously and study it and become obsessed with it, to the point at which, like, that was sort of my greatest skill as a musician.
Yeah.
More than singing or playing or anything, I could kind of get into the storytelling and the lyricism of creating a song. And it's a very obsessive act for me to do that. It needs to be, especially if I'm singing it, if I'm going to sing a song on a solo record or something, it's something I spend potentially years on to make perfect. When I write with other singers, like the work that I've done with Mark Ronson, well, he's not a singer, but he's a producer, or Daniel Merriweather, or even if I write with Sean for him to sing, I try to hold back my obsessiveness, because it becomes, I don't want it to be too difficult of a process or too painful for the other person.
So a bit of a maybe perfectionist?
Just where the song structure is concerned.
Oh, okay.
I maybe try to pack too much into it.
I would really hate for you to hear the stuff that me and my buddy did, because it's the complete opposite of structure. We would just play that, I've been drumming for about maybe 11 years now, and I'm not, the greatest in the world, but I could, keep in time with whoever's playing. But we were a very loose kind of group. We would be like, you know what, let's play a Weezer-like song. All right, let's just do it. Let's play a Eagles of Death Metal-like song. And so there's really no structure, and we just play to have fun. I love music so much, but it's more of a, like, I guess, stress reliever. I don't ever see myself.
It was not a stress reliever for me. Like, except concerts. Playing a concert was definitely, that was the big release of, energy, and that was really fun. Mm-hmm. When I had a band. Performing is so different than writing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like, it was interesting making the transition to film making and, like, the process of making a movie, because all of the different things that go into having a band and taking that seriously and treating it like a job, like writing the songs, practicing with the band, getting the band together, all the logistics and moving parts, all that stuff is the same kind of skill set that goes into producing and making an indie film. Mm-hmm. A lot of the same processes of writing a script, and then you take it to producers, and you have to gather a team in that same way. You have to gather a band and convince people that this vision is something they should, help you achieve. So it wasn't that, as much as they're different art forms in so many ways, there's, somehow the processes are similar. The way you have to shift gears constantly and manage all those moving parts.
How did you get into filmmaking?
Playwriting was an early activity that I had as a teenager. Like, I would write one-act plays a lot that were mainly comedies, very inspired by Woody Allen, and I'd submit them to festivals. And at one point, one of the festivals it was in, one of my plays, they told me that it should be a screenplay. So I got my parents got me the screenwriting software early, like Final Draft or whatever, one of the first ones. And I wrote a screenplay when I was like 16. And I had a friend whose dad was a producer, I forget where, and he submitted it for me to like I guess the people that were doing coverage on scripts. They didn't know that I was 16. They didn't know it was my first screenplay, and it was so intense. The notes that I got back, they were just brutal.
Wow.
And but then I still found, and I kind of stopped. I just figured, well, I'm not going to break in as a 16-year-old. But then I kept writing scripts. I just kept doing it, and it's something you hear like from, hopefully, one day to be successful and support myself doing it. But you hear from very successful people that there's sort of a lot of people want to do it, but you either keep doing it or you don't. Like, I think there's just something you either sort of obsessively do this, even in the face of brutal rejection, because on some level you're doing it for yourself. And the goal is to find the balance between doing it for yourself and then making something that is entertaining to big audiences.
Do you take your script writing process as seriously as your music writing process?
Yes.
Yeah.
And writing a script is harder in so many ways than writing a song. But writing a script's like writing an album almost. But the script writing is even harder because there's just more factors that really need to be accounted for. Characters, character arcs, the emotional beats. An album, I know that people, Jay-Z famously spends a lot of time figuring out the order of his album songs. And certainly in the past, like in the 70s and the 80s, order was really important because people didn't skip around as much.
Right.
These days, that order doesn't necessarily, it's not as important, but that's still an important thing in a 2-hour movie. Like the order, the emotional roller coaster that you go on in a film via the story that you're telling has to be the right combination of things, and it has to really unfold in a certain way so that the movie can take you on this journey that hopefully is a transformative journey, so at the end you've changed along with the characters. So that's really tough. But that actually, learning that or studying that has made songwriting more interesting for me. To kind of go back to songwriting, and I feel like, then you're in a 3-minute, 4-minute space, and it's fun to apply those lessons to that in a way that, still works with the medium.
And you've also composed scores for films too, which I had the chance to listen to a couple of them that were online, and one popped out at me. Supporting Characters.
Yes.
That one's a beautiful score.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was my first feature that I scored for someone else. For a different. I haven't scored my own movies, but I did collaborate with Sean Lennon on them as far as he was, So I had been through the process of scoring a movie, but supporting characters was really fun. Daniel Schechter is a really great director, and I met him. He's a good friend now, but I really met him at film festivals, and we hired him to do the trailer to edit the trailer for my first film, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Undead. And he's a talented filmmaker, as a writer, an editor, and a director. Scoring that film for Schechter taught me how to be a better director as far as hiring a musician to score my film. He really knew what he wanted, and he really just was over my shoulder a lot, telling me when it worked and when it didn't. And at times it was frustrating for me as a musician because, you know, I'm like, oh, this is, you get into the song, the melody, the instruments you're using, it feels really cool. And it's the trap, I think. It's interesting. It's a trap for a musician. You sit in front of the film and you start to, like, change the movie as you play along to it. Mm-hmm. And it's undeniable, but you need a director there to tell you that it's fitting their vision. So it was really fun to work with him.
Right.
Yeah. But I did all that in my bedroom on Pro Tools with acoustic guitar and piano, basically.
Wow, that's cool. I know that whenever I do like a 5-minute short, I always tell myself, oh, I can easily do the score for this. This is easy. Just, you know, put some drums, whatever. It's done. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I'll have the short edited. I'll sit there. I'll try to make music, and it's just I have the hardest time coming up with something that sounds, you know, good.
Totally, yeah. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not easy to. It's almost. I think it just takes more work if you're going to direct and edit and then like score, because I think what you have to do, and I can imagine doing this, you have to like really go through. You have to exhaust yourself to the point where like it's not about playing the music anymore. It's just about finding what works and what doesn't.
Right.
But the moment, you know, when you pick up an instrument and you start playing and you're scoring something, it's exciting, and you have to experience that excitement and let it drive you. But I think that if you don't have a director telling you that's working, that's not, then you have to wait until that dies down. And mm-hmm. So it's just a longer process. I mean, what I do also is I really just use reference music, and now I, you know, just download the soundtrack to something like that I love and see if it works under what I've filmed, and sort of, you know, use that as a strong directional starting point.
Let's talk about the films. Like I said, I saw Alter Ego just kind of on a whim. Cause
on where did you watch it?
I saw it on Netflix. Yes, it was like one of the last days that I had my subscription, and I'm a huge superhero movie guy. And
was it? I'm curious, like how you found it. Did it?
It was what was it? Since it's summertime and there's a lot of big blockbuster movies, I tend to watch a lot of indies. So I'll go through, you know, Netflix. You know, they usually have a pretty good selection of, you know, indie comedies. So I'm just flipping through, and I see, you know, the cover art, which has, you know, the three characters in their superhero outfits, and Alter Egos pops up, and I go, why does this sound familiar? And I listen to a lot of Kevin Smith. So
cool.
So I knew it was, you know, once I did, you know, the Googling and stuff like that, I was like, oh yeah, this is one, you know, in the Smodcast library or whatever. So then I just popped it on and started watching it. And I love how it's I don't know, to me it feels like a big story, but it's not really. When you watch it, it's like, oh, of course, you know, it's totally relatable, and it's kind of a cool approach on, you know, existing, you know, a lot of the superhero movies, mainly it being more story-wise instead of superpower-wise. Was that, you know, did you do that because, you know, you weren't able to afford big, fancy special effects, or what?
Well, we definitely, we weren't able to afford it. I mean, the whole film, I wrote it with the approach that it would be a low-budget movie. But, you know, like I said, I kind of got into screenwriting via playwriting. Mm-hmm. So I am attracted to stories I'm drawn to, like, the idea of writing something that has big characters, but that we're seeing this moment in their lives that's more contained and catching glimpses of the outside world. I was also what I told myself when I started writing it, when I imagined what the film would be, is that it would be, you know, I'd go for like Reservoir Dogs meet superheroes. Mm-hmm. We couldn't really even get as violent as I wanted to get, just because of the logistics of having those outfits and not being able to put too much blood on them, and we shot out of sequence, and we shot in a very short time. So we didn't even have enough time to like really do the makeup that I wanted to do on set. Mm-hmm. So everything was limited by the budget. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we just barely managed to make it work.
And if you don't mind me asking, what was the budget on that guy?
$300,000.
And just because I'd love to be a filmmaker and direct a movie. How does somebody, get funds like that?
Well, it helps that first of all, I guess it just feels like magic. Mm-hmm. I don't mean to be discouraging, but like it is really, it's just lucky. No matter if you could try for 10 years, you're lucky if you get funding. This one, it was a little bit easier for me because I had made my first film, had gotten a lot of notoriety, and like people knew about it and considered it a success. So this is my second film, and it was a similar kind of a pitch, like a popular genre that has this comedic, quirky twist. The Rosencrantz is vampires and this is superheroes. But the way that you go about it, I think is just sort of relentless, fearless kind of promotion, self-promotion, and shamelessly giving your script to as many people as possible. I think that it has to be reasonable. Like, I knew from having done it once that like a superhero comedy that could be made for $300,000 is an attractive idea to investors. Mm-hmm. I actually set out in my head. I said, if I can do this for $50,000, mm-hmm. If I just have to scrape a little bit of money together, I'll film it on a cheap camera. And I knew that I was lucky enough. Like, I wrote the parts for the actors, and I'd met all of them on my first film. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to work with them again and have them be in bigger parts. Mm-hmm. They're not like cheap actors. Like, they wouldn't. I knew that we had developed a working relationship where I could ask them to do that for me, and they would maybe do this because the parts were fun and they liked working with me and trusted me to complete a film that they could be proud of. Mm-hmm. So the three actors, Joey Kern, Chris Funke, and John Ventimiglia, I wrote the parts for. And Sean agreed to score it again. So with that already in place, I set out to make a movie for $50,000, and producers came on board and raised money, and then we were like, well, let's make it a little bit bigger, and it kind of incrementally increased until it was more of proper low budget, mm-hmm. Where we could actually hire crew and have a little bit of like more of a proper film crew.
I'll say, and I do appreciate the guy who can make something, with that type of budget, instead of the guy with the $120 million budget, and they just like, we have a problem. Let's just throw money at it. It does make you a bit more creative.
It's definitely like, it's something that I learned to appreciate doing a band for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Making the best out of what you have, and just appreciating that limitations can breed creativity. And one of the reasons I set out to do this, I have a lot of friends that are filmmakers, and when I was younger, I remember seeing a lot of friends of mine who were older than me struggling to get a movie made for even $1 million or $2 million, mm-hmm. and waiting and not being able to make the movie. And I think I had a reaction to that where I felt like, well, why can't you write something that you can make for cheaper?
Right.
And it was funny that we ended up working with Kevin Smith on the distribution end, because I really did. I did have a lot of respect for what he did with Clerks. I loved that film, and I think part of my feeling about making an indie film is that if Kevin Smith can make Clerks, then you should set out to achieve something on a similar scale if you're not having success raising more money. But you have to design it to be smaller. And there was a lot of Clerk's DNA in Alter Ego's script. Some of the notes I got back on earlier drafts from friends and actors, and I remember somebody saying, you know, it's a little bit too much like a Kevin Smith movie. And, you know, I don't think, like, so at one point I had the superheroes debating, you know, whether or not it was ethical to say that The Godfather was their favorite film. Because it's a mafia movie, but they're supposed to be upholding the law. And that was, you know, that was the kind of thing that I was doing in the script when I was just writing it and developing characters.
And how did you meet Kevin Smith and get a distribution deal with his company?
Well, the distributor, there's a distributor called Phase 4, and they're the main distributor. They worked with Kevin Smith on Red State, and through that collaboration, he decided to enter into like a kind of, I guess it's an imprint. So Kevin Smith has an imprint via Phase 4. And they watched the movie and thought this would be great for the Kevin Smith imprint that they were starting. They'd only released one movie before Alter Egos on that imprint, like Kevin Smith Movie Club or whatever. And I haven't actually met him, but I've had correspondence with him via like all these other people. And I hear that he really likes the movie.
Oh, okay.
And that you know, he had to approve it before they released it. I think that, I mean, it's tremendous. It lines up with his sensibility in a perfect way. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I guess let's. Do you have anything you wanted to talk about? I know you have a new CD coming out. Yeah,
I have a new solo record coming out. It's called Wind Up Rabbit, and it's coming out July 23rd.
Oh, okay. Okay. I do, one thing I'll ask you. I have a little nephew. He's 17 months old. And I would like to give something back to him, bestow some knowledge. And I'm 25, haven't lived that much, haven't had a movie made. Do you have any life advice for him? Any like film life advice?
Well, film life advice, I would say when you're young, just watch as many movies as possible and see what moves you and what inspires you.
There you go, Matthew. Now go do your homework.
Yeah. And if you, I guess it's like Werner Herzog. I think the reason why I decided to make my first short film was I was reading Herzog on Herzog. So I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, he said, I didn't make it that far into the book because I put it down after what I read, like the first paragraph, and decided to go make the movie because what he says in the first paragraph is there's no excuse not to make the movie that you want to make. Yeah. And that was it. And I was like, okay, I am going to borrow a camera. I'm going to go, and I lit everything myself. I asked friends to be in it, and I just went and did it with that thinking, well, Jesus, Herzog just told me all I need to know.
There you go. He was your film school right there.
Right, yeah, in like one sentence.
But yeah, thank you for chatting with me.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and if you ever have any, movie projects coming up, I do act a little bit, so I would love to, have an awkward audition with you for a role that I'm not suited for. I would love to do that.
That sounds fun.
All right. Well, thank you for chatting. Oh, and if people at home want to connect with you, listen to your music, where do they go do that?
I have a website. That's my name, jordangalland.com. It usually, I don't update it like every day, but it usually has, all my projects there on the homepage. And I have a Twitter account that.
And just one final question: do you have any other movies in the pipeline, or are you just kind of focusing on music right now?
I do. I have a movie that's in development. It's very close to being shot. It's about a kind of a new take on a possession movie. It's about a girl who's recovering from demonic possession.
Oh, geez, okay. That's kind of different. Is it a comedy?
It's got the tone is kind of like Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, okay.
It's not as much of a comedy as my first two films, but there's some humor to be had from that idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, hurry up and shoot it so I can watch it.
Yeah.
If only it was that easy, right?
Yeah.
But thanks for chatting with me. I was very happy to have a filmmaker on here, / musician / composer / I don't know, sandwich maker.
The slash generation.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, and you have a good rest of the day.
Hey, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.